The stagecoach rattled to a halt in a cloud of dust, the driver shouting "Copper Creek" into the scorching Arizona afternoon. Sophia Wilson clutched her 6-month-old daughter Emma tighter to her chest as panic rose within her. This wasn't right. Her husband-to-be was supposed to meet her here, but as passengers disembarked one by one, no one approached with recognition in their eyes. It was 1882, and Sophia had traveled over 2,000 miles from Boston with nothing but a letter promising a new life, a small trunk of possessions, and the baby she'd been left with after her sister's death in childbirth. The child's father had disappeared, leaving Sophia to care for her infant niece alone. With no prospects and dwindling funds, the advertisement for a mail-order bride had seemed like providence. "Last stop, madam," the driver called impatiently. "Everyone off." Sophia descended shakily from the coach. The small frontier town sprawled before her, a dusty main street lined with wooden buildings, a general store, saloon, and what appeared to be a small church at the far end. No sign of Mr. Peter Anderson, the cattle rancher who had written such promising letters. "Excuse me," she approached the driver as he unloaded trunks. "I'm to meet a Mr. Anderson. Do you know where his ranch might be?" The man scratched his beard. "Anderson? Only Anderson I knew sold his place 3 months back. Headed to California last I heard." Sophia's heart sank. "That can't be right. I have his letters." But even as she spoke, doubts crept in. His last letter had been brief, with directions to Copper Creek but no specific meeting arrangements. "Well, madam, I've got a schedule to keep. Best check at the general store, they might know something." He tipped his hat and returned to securing luggage. The baby began to fuss, her tiny face reddening in the heat. Sophia bounced her gently, fighting back tears. She had exactly $8.43 to her name, not nearly enough for a return journey to Boston, where nothing awaited them anyway. "You look like you could use some help." Sophia turned to find a man watching her from the shade of the station overhang. He was tall and lean, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a summer sky. His clothes were trail-worn denim pants, a faded blue shirt, and a dust-covered Stetson that had seen better days. Despite his rugged appearance, something in his steady gaze put her slightly at ease. "I'm fine, thank you," she said automatically, pride overriding desperation. He stepped forward, the sunlight catching in his light brown hair. "Name's Henry Hayes." "I don't mean to pry, madam, but you're holding that baby like she might break. Your face is white as a sheet, and you look about ready to collapse." Emma chose that moment to let out a piercing wail. Sophia tried to soothe her, but her own hands were trembling too badly. "I'm supposed to meet someone," she admitted, her voice barely audible over Emma's cries. "A Mr. Anderson, but it seems he's no longer here." Understanding dawned in Henry's eyes. "Mail order situation," Sophia flushed with embarrassment. "Yes. He wrote that he needed a wife to help with his ranch and raise children. I have his letters." She fumbled in her reticule with one hand, still bouncing the increasingly upset Emma. "Here, let me," Henry said, and before Sophia could protest, he gently took Emma from her arms. To her surprise, the baby's cries immediately softened as he held her with practiced ease. "There we go, little one. That's better, isn't it?" Emma stared up at him with wide eyes, momentarily startled into silence by this new face. "You're good with her," Sophia said, finding the letters at last. "Had 6 younger siblings," he replied with a small smile. "Plus I help birth calves every spring." Despite everything, Sophia found herself laughing. "I hardly think my niece compares to a calf. You'd be surprised. Both are stubborn and make a lot of noise when they're unhappy." His smile faded as he glanced at the letters she held. "Anderson, you said. Peter Anderson?" "Yes. Do you know him?" Henry nodded grimly. Everybody did. He wasn't what you'd call an honest man, sold his ranch to cover gambling debts, left town owing money to half the businesses here. Sophia's legs nearly gave out. She stumbled to a nearby bench, sinking down as the reality of her situation crashed over her. "What am I going to do?" she whispered. Henry settled beside her, still holding Emma, who had now taken interest in the buttons on his shirt. "Where were you coming from?" "Boston." He let out a low whistle. "Long way." "Yes." She stared at the dusty street, mind racing through impossible options. "You have family back there, anyone who can help?" Sophia shook her head. "My parents passed 2 years ago. My sister died giving birth to Emma. I was caring for her alone when I answered Mr. Anderson's advertisement." She glanced at him, suddenly self-conscious. "I'm not actually Emma's mother." "But you're all she's got," Henry observed quietly. "And she's all I have," Sophia replied. A moment of silence passed between them as the stagecoach driver shouted final preparations for departure. "I have a ranch," Henry said suddenly. "It's about 15 miles north of here. Not big, but it's growing. Got a decent house, too." Sophia stiffened. "Sir, if you're suggesting, I'm suggesting you need somewhere to stay while you figure things out," he interrupted gently. "Town's not safe for a woman alone with a baby and no prospects. I've got a spare room. You can stay until you decide what to do next." Suspicion warred with desperation in Sophia's mind. "Why would you help strangers?" Henry looked down at Emma, who had fallen asleep against his chest. "Because someone once did the same for me when I needed it. Besides, I'd never sleep again knowing I left you two stranded here." Sophia studied him, the honest eyes, the gentle way he held Emma, the calloused hands that spoke of hard work rather than gambling or drinking. "I don't even know you," she said weakly. "No, you don't," he agreed. "But I know every inch of this territory and I can lead you to safety. After that, what happens is up to you." The stagecoach driver called his final warning. "I'll be heading back to my ranch in an hour," Henry said, carefully returning Emma to Sophia's arms. "Got supplies to pick up first. If you want to come along, meet me at Miller's General Store." He tipped his hat and stepped back. "Choice is yours, madam." Sophia watched him walk away, her mind spinning. The alternative was staying in a town where she knew no one, with almost no money and nowhere to go. "Mr. Hayes," she called after him. He turned, eyebrows raised. "Thank you," she said simply. He nodded once. 1 hour. The general store was cooler than the street outside, but Sophia still felt perspiration beading along her hairline as she sat on a chair the kindly Mrs. Miller had provided. Emma slept peacefully in her arms, unaware of their precarious situation. "Anderson, you say?" Mrs. Miller shook her head in disapproval. "That man caused nothing but trouble, left debts all over town, even had the nerve to sell property he didn't rightly own. You know Mr. Hayes?" Sophia asked hesitantly. Mrs. Miller's expression softened. "Henry. Known him since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. His folks had the ranch before him, good people. Lost them both to fever about 5 years back. Henry works that land harder than any man I know." She paused, studying Sophia. "He offering to help," Sophia nodded. "Then you're in good hands. He's as honest as they come." Mrs. Miller leaned closer. "And not hard on the eyes either, if you don't mind my saying." Sophia felt herself blushing. "It's not like that, he's just being kind." "Kind he is, Mrs. Miller agreed with a knowing smile. "But also lonesome out there by himself. Ranch that size needs a woman's touch." Before Sophia could respond, the bell above the door jangled and Henry entered. He'd clearly taken time to clean up his face, freshly washed, hair combed, and shirt changed to a cleaner one, though still work-worn. "Mrs. Miller," he greeted with a tip of his hat. "Got my order ready, all set, Henry." She disappeared into the back room, returning with a crate of supplies. Henry paid for his goods, then turned to Sophia. "Made your decision," she stood, adjusting Emma in her arms. "Yes, I'd be grateful for your help, Mr. Hayes." Something like relief flickered across his face. "Wagon's outside. It's not a fancy ride, but it'll get us there." The wagon was indeed simple, a sturdy farm wagon pulled by 2 bay horses. Henry loaded Sophia's trunk and his supplies, then fashioned a small nest of blankets. "For the baby," he explained. "It'll be safer than you holding her over the rough parts." Touched by his thoughtfulness, Sophia settled Emma in the makeshift bed, then allowed Henry to help her onto the seat. His hand was warm and calloused against hers, steady as she found her balance. As they pulled away from Copper Creek, Sophia couldn't help but look back at the town that was supposed to be her new beginning. It now represented broken promises and dashed hopes. "We'll head north through Walker Pass," Henry said, breaking the silence. "Should reach the ranch before sunset if we make good time." "What's your ranch like?" Sophia asked, wanting to focus on something besides her uncertain future. Pride crept into Henry's voice. 200 acres, though only about 60 are usable right now. Working on clearing more. Got 30 head of cattle, some chickens, 2 milk cows, and a vegetable garden that's trying its best despite my lack of skill." He glanced at her. "House isn't fancy, but it's solid. 2 bedrooms, a good kitchen, and a porch that catches the evening breeze." "It sounds lovely," Sophia said sincerely. "It's home." His expression grew distant. "My pa built it with plans to expand as the family grew. After he and Ma passed, I never got around to it. Seemed pointless for just one person." The conversation flowed more easily after that. Henry told her about ranch life. The neighbors miles away but loyal in times of need. The small town of Riverton 20 miles north, where he sold his cattle. In turn, Sophia shared stories of Boston, of raising Emma alone, of teaching music to wealthy children to make ends meet after her parents died. She found herself comfortable in his presence, despite the strangeness of their situation. The terrain changed as they traveled, the flat desert giving way to rolling hills covered in scrub brush and occasional juniper trees. In the distance, mountains rose purple against the blue sky. "Your niece seems to be a good traveler," Henry observed as Emma slept peacefully in her nest of blankets. "She's resilient," Sophia replied, stroking the baby's cheek. "More than I am, I think. Don't sell yourself short. Takes courage to travel across the country on nothing but a promise." "Or foolishness," she countered. "Sometimes they're the same thing." He guided the horses around a large rock in the path. "Out here, a bit of foolhardy courage is often what keeps folks alive." The sun was beginning its descent when Henry pointed ahead. "There it is, Hayes Ranch." Sophia followed his gaze to where the land opened into a small valley. A modest but well-maintained house stood near a large barn and several smaller outbuildings. A corral held horses, and beyond she could see cattle grazing in a pasture bordered by a creek that glinted in the late afternoon light. "It's beautiful," she breathed, genuinely impressed. Henry's expression softened with pride. "It's not much compared to what you're used to. It's perfect," Sophia interrupted. "Truly." As they drew closer, a large black and white dog raced out to greet them, barking excitedly. "That's Scout," Henry said. "Best cattle dog in the territory and terrible guard dog. He'd welcome a bear if it scratched his ears." True to Henry's description, Scout circled the wagon, tail wagging furiously until Henry stopped and let him jump up for a pat. "Got company, Scout," he told the dog. "Best behavior now." The dog seemed to understand, immediately turning his attention to Sophia. He approached cautiously, sniffing at her skirts. "He won't hurt you," Henry assured her. "Just curious about newcomers." Sophia reached down to let Scout sniff her hand, then gently scratched behind his ears. "Hello there." The dog's approval was immediate and enthusiastic, his whole body wiggling with delight. "He likes you," Henry observed with a smile. "Good judge of character, that one." They continued to the house, where Henry helped Sophia down from the wagon. Emma had awakened and was looking around with wide eyes at her new surroundings. "Let me get you settled inside. Then I'll take care of the horses and bring in your trunk," Henry said, leading the way up 3 wooden steps to a covered porch. The house was simple but neat, with a main room that served as both kitchen and living area. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and a solid wooden table with 4 chairs stood in the center. The furniture was handmade but sturdy, a rocking chair, a small sofa covered in worn but clean fabric, and shelves holding books and a few personal items. "Bedrooms are through there," Henry indicated a short hallway. "Mine's on the left, yours will be on the right, washrooms out back. It's not much, but it's lovely," Sophia said honestly. After weeks of travel, the clean, quiet space felt like luxury. Henry showed her to the spare bedroom, a modest space with a single bed, a small dresser, and a window overlooking the corral. "I'll bring in some water so you can freshen up. Then we can see about dinner." Left alone with Emma, Sophia sat on the bed, feeling the events of the day catch up with her. She'd arrived expecting to meet her future husband, only to find he'd abandoned her before she even arrived. Now she was in a stranger's home, miles from anywhere familiar. Yet Henry Hayes didn't feel like a stranger anymore. There was something about his steady presence that calmed her, made her feel safer than she had in months. Emma fussed, hungry after the long journey. Sophia fed her, changed her, and settled her on the bed surrounded by pillows to prevent her from rolling off. The baby watched with curious eyes as Sophia unpacked their meager possessions once Henry had brought in the trunk. A knock at the door frame startled her. Henry stood there, holding a basin of water and a clean towel. "Thought you might want to wash up," he said, setting them on the dresser. "I've started dinner. Nothing fancy, just beans, cornbread, and some bacon. Hope that's all right." "More than all right," Sophia assured him. "Thank you," he nodded, lingering awkwardly for a moment. "Take your time, just come out when you're ready." He turned to leave, then paused. "I'm glad you decided to come, Miss Wilson." Something in his sincere tone made her throat tighten with emotion. "So am I, Mr. Hayes." After he left, Sophia washed away the dust of travel, changed into her cleanest remaining dress, and tidied her hair. Emma was becoming fussy again, so she carried the baby with her as she made her way back to the main room. The transformation surprised her. The table was set with mismatched but clean dishes. A lantern glowed softly in the center, and delicious smells filled the air. Henry stood at the stove, his back to her as he worked. "Can I help?" she offered. He turned, a smile brightening his features. "Already done. Just need to put it on the table." As they ate, Sophia realized how hungry she'd been. The simple food tasted wonderful after days of stagecoach station fare. "This is delicious," she told him, meaning it. Henry looked pleased but embarrassed by the praise. "It's just beans and bacon, nothing special. After what I've been eating on the journey, it's a feast." They talked easily through dinner, Henry asking about her journey and Sophia inquiring about life on the ranch. When Emma began to fuss again, Sophia apologized, rising to take her back to the bedroom. "No need to hide away," Henry said. "She's welcome out here." Sophia hesitated. "She can be quite loud when she's tired." "Nothing louder than a calf separated from its mother," he replied with a wink. "Besides, I like the sound of life in this house." Something about the way he said it, a hint of loneliness quickly masked, tugged at Sophia's heart. She settled back down, rocking Emma gently in her arms. "How long have you lived here alone?" she asked. "5 years since my parents passed. Had a ranch hand for a while, but couldn't afford to keep him on after a bad drought 2 years back." He shrugged. "Got used to my own company." "It must get lonely. Sometimes." He studied the coffee in his cup. "But it's my land, my responsibility. My parents worked too hard for me to give up on it." "That's admirable," Sophia said softly. Henry looked up, his blue eyes meeting hers. "What about you? What made you decide to become a mail-order bride?" Sophia sighed, the question bringing back her precarious situation. "Necessity, mostly. After my sister died, I struggled to care for Emma and myself. My teaching position barely paid enough for one person, let alone two. When I saw Mr. Anderson's advertisement..." She trailed off, embarrassed. "What did it say?" Henry asked gently. "That he was a successful rancher seeking a wife who enjoyed children and country living. He wrote that he wanted a family, a partner to share his life with." She shifted Emma to her shoulder. "His letters were kind, I thought." She blinked back sudden tears. "I thought we might build something good together, even if it wasn't a love match at first." Henry's expression darkened. "Anderson always did have a silver tongue. Used it to swindle half the county before he left." "I feel like such a fool," Sophia whispered. "You're not," Henry said firmly. "You're brave. Taking a chance on a better life doesn't make you foolish." His words warmed something inside her that had been cold with fear and doubt all day. "Thank you for saying that." They fell into comfortable silence as Emma finally dozed off against Sophia's shoulder. The baby's weight was familiar and comforting, her soft breathing a reminder of why Sophia had risked everything in the first place. "I should put her to bed," Sophia said finally. "It's been a long day for both of us." Henry nodded, rising to light a lamp for her. "If you need anything in the night, don't hesitate to wake me." In the small bedroom, Sophia created a makeshift crib from a drawer lined with blankets, gently transferring the sleeping Emma. She changed into her nightgown and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process everything that had happened. The sound of soft guitar music drifted through the house, a slow, melancholy tune that spoke of longing and hope intertwined. She hadn't noticed a guitar earlier, but the skill with which Henry played suggested years of practice. Sophia found herself humming along, the music a balm to her worried mind. Eventually, the playing stopped, and she heard him moving around, banking the fire and readying for sleep. Despite her exhaustion, sleep came fitfully that night. Dreams of being lost in an endless desert with Emma crying in her arms kept startling her awake. Each time, the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch, distant coyotes, the creak of the house, the soft whining of horses reminded her how far she was from everything she'd known. Morning arrived with golden light streaming through the simple curtains. For a moment, Sophia was disoriented. Then the events of the previous day came rushing back. Emma was already awake, babbling happily to herself in her makeshift bed. Sophia dressed quickly, making herself and Emma as presentable as possible before venturing out. The main room was empty, but coffee bubbled on the stove and the table was set for breakfast. Through the window, she could see Henry in the corral, working with a young horse. She poured herself coffee and settled on the porch steps to watch, Emma balanced on her lap. Henry moved with fluid grace around the skittish colt, his voice a constant, soothing murmur that Sophia couldn't quite make out. The horse gradually relaxed under his patient handling. There was something mesmerizing about watching him work, the confident movements, the gentle persistence, the moment when the colt finally allowed him to stroke its neck without flinching. "Good morning." Sophia jumped slightly, not having noticed Henry approach. "Good morning. I was just admiring your skill with that horse." He smiled, removing his hat and wiping sweat from his brow. "That's thunder. Been working with him for 2 weeks now. He's coming along. He nodded toward the coffee cup in her hand. Find everything all right? Yes, thank you. I hope you don't mind that I helped myself. Course not. This is your home for as long as you need it. He settled beside her on the steps, careful to leave a respectful distance between them. Sleep well. Well enough, she lied, not wanting to seem ungrateful. And you, same as always. His attention shifted to Emma, who was watching him with fascination. Morning to you too, little miss. Emma responded with a happy gurgle, waving her arms toward him. She remembers you, Sophia observed with surprise. We had a good conversation yesterday while you were getting settled, Henry replied with a straight face. Mostly about cattle prices and the weather. Sophia laughed, the sound surprising her. It had been so long since she'd had reason to laugh. Henry's expression softened. That's a nice sound. Their eyes met briefly before Sophia looked away, unexpectedly flustered. I should help with breakfast. Already taken care of, he assured her. Just need to fetch the eggs. Want to come along? I'm sure Emma would enjoy seeing the chickens. The morning passed in a pleasant routine of chores. Henry showed Sophia around the ranch, explaining his daily work and future plans for expansion. She found herself impressed by his vision and determination. What will you do now? He asked as they walked back toward the house, Emma drowsing against Sophia's shoulder in the late morning warmth. The question brought her crashing back to reality. I'm not sure, she admitted. I don't have enough money to return to Boston, and there's nothing for us there anyway. Copper Creek has a school that might need a teacher, Henry suggested. Or Riverton, it's larger, more established. Perhaps. Sophia considered the idea, though finding lodgings with an infant would be challenging. Henry nodded thoughtfully. No rush to decide. You're welcome here until you figure things out. That's very generous, but I can't impose indefinitely. I should contribute somehow. If you insist, I wouldn't say no to help with cooking, Henry admitted with a sheepish smile. I manage, but it's not my strong suit, and the garden could use a knowledgeable touch. I accept, Sophia said, relieved to have a way to repay his kindness. Though I should warn you, my gardening experience is limited to window boxes in Boston. Still more than mine, he chuckled. I mostly just stick seeds in the ground and hope for the best. As they neared the house, Sophia noticed a cloud of dust in the distance. Someone's coming, she pointed. Henry squinted against the sun. That'll be Doc Williams. He stops by once a month to check on the old-timers in these parts. He glanced at her. Might be good for him to take a look at Emma, make sure she's doing all right after the journey. Sophia's grip on Emma tightened involuntarily. Is he trustworthy? Understanding filled Henry's eyes. Best doctor in 3 counties. Brought me into this world and most other folks around here. Good man. The doctor's buggy pulled up in front of the house 20 minutes later. Samuel Williams was older than Sophia had expected, white-haired and stooped, but with sharp eyes that missed nothing as Henry made introductions. Mail-order bride situation gone wrong, eh? He summarized after hearing a simplified version of Sophia's story. Anderson always was a snake. You're better off without that entanglement, miss. That's what I've been telling her, Henry agreed. The doctor examined Emma thoroughly, pronouncing her fit as a fiddle and growing like a weed. He accepted a cup of coffee and spent an hour sharing local news and medical advice before continuing on his rounds. Looks like you've landed on your feet, Miss Wilson, he said as he prepared to leave. Hayes here is one of the good ones. I'm beginning to realize that, Sophia replied, avoiding Henry's gaze after the doctor left. An awkward silence fell between them. I should get back to work, Henry said finally. Got fence to mend in the north pasture. Will you be all right here alone? Of course, Sophia assured him. In fact, I'll prepare dinner for when you return. His face brightened. That would be nice. Alone in the house, Sophia explored more thoroughly, trying to learn the rhythms of this new place. She found the pantry well stocked with staples, discovered Henry's small collection of books that ranged from practical farming manuals to poetry, and noticed the little touches that spoke of a man who took pride in his home despite living alone, curtains that needed mending but were clean, floors swept, dishes neatly stacked. In his absence, she found herself studying the few personal items displayed around the house. A daguerreotype of a couple she assumed, where his parents sat on the mantel, a stern-faced man with Henry's eyes, and a smiling woman with his warm expression. Beside it was a smaller image of a young Henry with two other children. "My brother and sister," Henry's voice came from behind her, making her jump guiltily. "Samuel died of the fever same as my parents. Sarah married a soldier and moved to Kansas City." "I'm sorry," Sophia said, embarrassed at being caught snooping. "I didn't mean to pry." "Nothing to apologize for," he assured her, removing his hat and hanging it by the door. "Not much privacy in a house this size." "You're home early," she observed, changing the subject. "Storm brewing." He nodded toward the window where dark clouds were gathering on the horizon. "Wanted to get the stock secured before it hits." "I'll finish dinner then," Sophia said, moving toward the kitchen area. "It should be ready soon." The storm broke just as they sat down to eat. Rain lashed against the windows and thunder rumbled in the distance. Emma, startled by a particularly loud crash, began to wail. "She's not used to storms," Sophia explained, rising to comfort her. "Bring her here," Henry said, moving his chair back from the table. When Sophia hesitated, he added, "Sometimes a change of arms helps." She carefully transferred Emma to him, watching in amazement as the baby's cries immediately lessened. Henry held her securely against his chest, one large hand patting her back rhythmically. "There now," he murmured. "Just a bit of rain and thunder, nothing to fret about." Emma hiccuped, her teary eyes fixed on his face as he continued to speak softly to her. Within minutes she was calm, tiny fingers clutching at his shirt. "You're remarkable with her," Sophia said, returning to her seat. Henry shrugged, still holding Emma comfortably. "Like I said, lots of practice with siblings." "It's more than that," Sophia insisted. "She trusts you. She barely knows you, but she trusts you completely." "Babies know good people from bad," he replied simply. "They sense things we've forgotten how to see." They finished dinner with Emma contentedly perched on Henry's lap, allowing Sophia to eat without juggling baby and fork for the first time in months. The domestic scene felt strangely natural, as if they'd shared many such evenings instead of just two. After clearing the dishes, Henry brought out his guitar, settling in the rocking chair near the fire he'd built to ward off the storm's chill. "You mind?" he asked, fingers poised over the strings. "Please," Sophia encouraged, curling up on the sofa with Emma. "I enjoyed hearing you play last night." He began with lively tunes that made Emma wave her arms in delight, then shifted to slower, gentler melodies as the baby's eyes grew heavy. Sophia found herself humming along, occasionally adding harmonies when she recognized a song. "You have a beautiful voice," Henry commented during a pause. "Trained," Sophia nodded. "My father insisted on music lessons, said a lady should be accomplished in the arts. Would you sing something?" he asked hesitantly. "I don't often get to hear real singing out here." Embarrassed but pleased, Sophia began a gentle lullaby, her voice softening as Emma fell asleep in her arms. Henry accompanied her after the first verse, his guitar a perfect complement to her clear soprano. When the song ended, Sophia looked up to find Henry watching her with an expression that made her heart beat faster. "I should put her to bed," she whispered, rising carefully to avoid waking Emma. "Of course." Henry set aside his guitar. "I'll bank the fire." In the small bedroom, Sophia settled Emma in her makeshift crib, lingering longer than necessary to collect her suddenly scattered thoughts. There was something happening between her and Henry, something unexpected, and perhaps unwise given her vulnerable position. When she returned to the main room, she found Henry standing by the window, watching the storm. "Should be past by morning," he said without turning. "Good for the crops, though." "Yes," Sophia agreed, uncertain what else to say. He faced her then, his expression serious. "I've been thinking about your situation." Her heart sank. Was he regretting his offer of shelter already? "There's a place for a teacher opening in Riverton," he continued. "Doc Williams mentioned it. Term starts in 6 weeks, pays fair and comes with a small house." "Oh," Sophia tried to mask her disappointment. Of course he was helping her find a way to leave. That had been the arrangement from the start. "That sounds promising." "It would be steady work," Henry agreed, though something in his tone seemed off. "Respectable. Thank you for thinking of it." Sophia forced a smile. "I should inquire about it." Henry nodded, running a hand through his hair in a gesture she'd come to recognize as nervousness. "Or," he said slowly, "you could stay." Sophia stilled. "Stay here with me." The words tumbled out faster now. "I know it's sudden and probably improper, but I've never met anyone like you, Sophia. You're brave and kind and—" He broke off, color rising in his cheeks. "I'm not offering out of pity or convenience. I'm offering because in just 2 days this house already feels more like a home than it has in years." Sophia's mind raced. "Henry, you don't have to answer now," he hurried to add. "Take time to think, get to know me better. All I'm asking is that you consider the possibility of building a life here together." The sincerity in his eyes took her breath away. "This isn't like you offering shelter to a stranded woman and child. No," he said firmly. "This is me recognizing something rare and not wanting to lose it out of fear or propriety." Sophia took a step closer to him. "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Hayes?" A smile tugged at his lips. "I believe I'm proposing marriage, Miss Wilson, though not very eloquently." "On the contrary," she whispered, her heart pounding, "I think it might be the most honest proposal a woman could hope for." Hope brightened his features. "Is that a yes?" "It's a I think we should take time to be certain," Sophia clarified, though she couldn't stop her own smile. "For Emma's sake as well as ours. But—" she took a deep breath. "My heart is inclined to say yes." The joy that spread across Henry's face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "I can work with that," he said softly. Impulsively, Sophia reached for his hand, her smaller one fitting perfectly within his calloused palm. "I came west seeking security for Emma and myself. I never expected to find someone like you." "And I never expected to find anyone at all," Henry replied, gently squeezing her hand. "Yet here you are, like an answer to a prayer I didn't know I was making." The days that followed took on a rhythm that felt increasingly natural. Henry taught Sophia about ranch life, how to collect eggs without upsetting the hens, the proper way to milk a cow, which vegetables needed more water and which thrived on neglect. In turn, she brought order to his home, mending curtains, organizing cupboards, and cooking meals that made him declare her worth her weight in gold. Emma flourished under their shared care. She began crawling across the plank floors with determined speed, explored the fenced garden while Sophia weeded, and fell asleep each evening to the sound of Henry's guitar and Sophia's voice. 2 weeks after Sophia's arrival, Henry rode into Riverton for supplies and returned with a proper crib for Emma, assembled from parts he'd ordered specially. "You didn't have to do that," Sophia protested, even as she admired the sturdy construction and smooth finish. "Been meaning to build one," Henry replied with a shrug that didn't quite hide his pleasure at her reaction. "Just needed the right motivation." That night, After Emma was sleeping peacefully in her new bed, they sat together on the porch, watching fireflies rise from the grass. "I spoke to Reverend Thomas in town today," Henry said, his voice casual but his posture tense. "He could marry us next Sunday if you're still inclined." Sophia's breath caught. They'd spoken often of marriage in the past weeks, but this was the first concrete step toward making it reality. "So soon?" she asked, not out of reluctance but surprise. Henry turned to face her, moonlight silvering his features. "I know my mind and heart, Sophia. I love you. I love Emma as if she were my own. I want to be a family properly before God and community. Love." He'd never said the word so directly before. Sophia felt it echo inside her, matching the feeling that had been growing since that first day when he'd held Emma so confidently and offered to lead her to safety. "I love you too," she whispered, the admission both frightening and freeing. And yes, next Sunday would be perfect. His kiss was gentle, a promise rather than a demand, but it sent warmth cascading through her nonetheless. When they separated, the look in his eyes made her feel more treasured than any words could convey. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. "It's not fancy, but it was my mother's." The ring he produced was a simple gold band with a small pearl nestled in the center. She always said the pearl represented the unexpected treasures life brings us if we're brave enough to open the oyster. As he slipped it onto her finger, Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. "It's beautiful." "Like you," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I never thought I'd find someone willing to share this life. It's not easy or glamorous." "It's real," Sophia said firmly, "and it's ours." Sunday dawned clear and bright. Sophia dressed in her best gown, a blue cotton that had seen better days, but was freshly pressed, and adorned with a lace collar she'd salvaged from another dress. Emma wore a white dress that Mrs. Miller had insisted on giving them when they'd visited the general store earlier in the week. "Every baby needs something special for important days," the older woman had declared, pressing the tiny garment into Sophia's hands. The Riverton church was small but well-maintained, with colorful glass windows that cast rainbow patterns across the wooden pews. Only a handful of people attended the ceremony. Doc Williams, Mrs. Miller and her husband, 2 neighboring ranchers and their wives, and Sarah, Henry's sister, who had arrived unexpectedly the previous evening after receiving Henry's letter about his impending marriage. "Never thought my stubborn brother would find someone who could match him," Sarah had whispered to Sophia as they prepared for the ceremony. "I'm so glad he did." Reverend Thomas kept the service simple, but his words about commitment, partnership, and building a life together resonated deeply. When Henry slipped the gold band onto Sophia's finger and promised to love and cherish her all the days of his life, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd found her true home. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the Reverend declared, his weathered face creasing in a smile. "What God has joined together, let no man put asunder." Henry's kiss was tender but held a promise of deeper passion that made Sophia's cheeks flush with anticipation. Emma, balanced on Sarah's hip, squealed with delight, seemingly understanding the significance of the moment. The small reception at the town hotel was filled with laughter, good food, and the warm welcome of a community embracing its newest members. Sophia found herself surrounded by women eager to share advice on ranch life, child rearing, and marriage. "You've brought light back to Henry's eyes," Doc Williams told her as they shared a quiet moment. "Never seen him so happy." "He's done the same for me," Sophia replied, watching as her new husband bounced Emma on his knee, making the baby laugh uproariously. "When I arrived in Copper Creek, I thought all was lost. Now I can't imagine a different life." Sometimes the detours lead us exactly where we need to be, the doctor said sagely. By late afternoon, they were heading home. Sophia thought with wonder. Emma slept peacefully in her arms, exhausted from all the excitement. "Happy, Mrs. Hayes?" Henry asked, his free arm circling her shoulders as he guided the wagon with his other hand. "Completely," she answered, leaning into his embrace. "Though I can't help thinking about how different things might have been if Mr. Anderson had met me as promised." Henry's arm tightened around her. "I thank God every day that he didn't." The following months brought challenges and joys as they adjusted to married life. Henry expanded the house as he'd always planned, adding a larger bedroom for themselves and a small nursery for Emma. Sophia planted flowers alongside the vegetables in the garden, started a small flock of chickens that produced eggs for both consumption and selling in town, and began teaching Emma simple words and songs. Their first Christmas together brought a heavy snowfall that kept them housebound for days. They didn't mind. The home was warm, the pantry well-stocked, and the time together precious. "I have something for you," Sophia told Henry on Christmas morning, after they'd exchanged modest gifts and watched Emma delight in the wooden horse Henry had carved for her. "Another present?" he asked, surprised. She took his hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "One that won't arrive until summer." The wonder that spread across his face was everything she'd hoped for. "A baby," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Sophia nodded, happy tears filling her eyes. "Our baby." Henry gathered her in his arms, holding her as if she were made of the most precious material on earth. "I love you," he murmured against her hair. "I love you both, all three of you, so much." "And we love you," Sophia replied, thinking of how far she'd come from that frightened, abandoned woman on the stage-coach platform. "Thank you for finding us when we were lost. Thank you for trusting me to lead you home," he countered, his eyes shining with joy and unshed tears. "And for making it truly a home worth having." Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the Hayes ranch in pristine white. Inside, by the warmth of the fire, a family that fate had brought together celebrated the greatest gift of all, the love they'd found in each other. As spring bloomed across the ranch, bringing new calves, fresh vegetables, and wildflowers that carpeted the pastures, Sophia often thought about the strange twists of fate that had brought her to this life. The mail-order bride arrangement that had failed had led her instead to a love deeper and truer than she could have imagined. Henry found her one evening standing on the porch, one hand resting on her growing belly, the other holding Emma, who was now taking her first wobbly steps. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, wrapping his arms around both of them. Sophia smiled, leaning back against his solid strength. "I was just thinking that sometimes being lost is the only way to find where you truly belong." "Then I'm glad you got lost," Henry murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "And even gladder that I found you." Emma reached for him, babbling "pa" as she'd recently begun doing, making both of them beam with pride. As Henry took her in his arms, Sophia watched the man who had become husband, father, and partner, the man who had seen a stranded woman with a baby and offered not just shelter but a future filled with love. "I'm glad too," she whispered, her heart full to overflowing. "More than I could ever say."